We are back racing. We are at Castle Combe for the Easter Classic. A bit different to anything I've done before. I've never done Castle Combe. Guys, welcome back to the What Life. Let's roll. So it's a big morning of racing down here. It's Castle Combe racetrack, which means two things. Flat, fast, big bunch group. Also, it means it's going to be lonely as hell if you get dropped. I managed to remember to bring my license this week, so I'm going to sign on and figure out what I need to do today. I'm racing at 12:15, I think, in the Cat 4 only, and there's a bunch of junior races on now. Then after me, it's a Cat 3 only, I think, and then we got some E12s and stuff like that. So there's tons going on. Let me sign on and then we will get set up and see what the deal is. Right, we are all signed on. No chip timing today, or I didn't get chip timer. Maybe the E12s might have chip timing. I don't know how many people are taking part today. Kind of irrelevant. I think there'll be like a good group of, maybe I saw 3 sheets and maybe 25 to 30 riders, maybe a few more. I imagine you can have quite a few on this course because it's a very big open wide racetrack that we are rolling on. The quality of the tarmac looks amazing. When we race at Abingdon, we're on an airfield and there's a few little cracks on it. Nothing to worry about, but the quality of the tarmac here looks probably the best that I would have raced on. Weather-wise, a little bit of light rain. When I left this morning, it was super nice and sunny, so I've massively misjudged that. That's my fault, as usual. Yeah, let's get set up. I'll talk you through everything, but I am gonna go for a pee. Track is there. I'm parked up right here. Good little venue this, because it's all self-contained. Little cafe, toilets, everything. It's bigger than some of the other events I've done, but it's all self-contained. Big car park, you know. So if you are nothing to worry about, turn up, you're good. Sorting out my bike. Right, let me give you a quick rundown on the bike, because I swapped out the Lun Hyper wheels. I had the 68 mils for the Drive Helix wheels. They're a little bit lower profile. It's windy today. There's tons of crosswind. Apparently that's the thing that affects the race the most. So I swapped out the wheels. That's also got it's a 3310 rather than a 3411, which was what I was riding in Mallorca. So hopefully, you know, an extra tooth, one less tooth, so a bit more kind of speed. On a flat fast course, maybe I make the sprint on the finish. It's a 4th Cat only race. Other than that, not much to report really. I am going to give you a quick rundown on the cameras that I use, because I do get the occasional question about it, but it's going to be a 30-second camera tip for you. So I use 3 different cameras. One that I'm filming on at the moment. The second one is the X4, and if you are a crit racer and you just want to film your crit or your road race and you want to put that content on Instagram or on YouTube, then this is actually a great camera, because it just gets on the front of your bike. The battery lasts for about an hour and a half, so you can just press go and forget about it, and that's what I do. I basically get on the start line, I press record, forget about it, it's just on the front of my bike. Afterwards, I get to kind of go through and re-edit it. I shoot in 5.7K at 25 on this. If that doesn't mean anything to you, it doesn't matter. But if you are using one, then you can just copy those settings. 5.7K at 25 frames per second. The second camera I use is my little bottle cam. There's 2 things I use for that, which is this little clip thing. The bottle camera just kind of comes out here. It's tiny. So it's called the Insta360 Go S. This small little thing just sits in there like that. It's magnetic. And then I clip this thing onto the bottle cage. This will only last 35 minutes. So today's race is a 45-minute race plus 1 lap. Originally, when they put it up online, I think they got it a little bit wrong, because they said it was a 30-minute race plus 1 lap, but then they changed it. So we are definitely running a 45-minute race plus 1 lap, which means this will not get the whole race. But I do like running the bottle cam because it's just a different perspective, especially on these like bunch races as well. And I just clip it to the top of my bottle cage, which might not work for everyone, but I have a certain kind of shape of bottle cage. And as of yet, that has not come off. Right, let's get ready to race. I don't really know where you can warm up, so I'll figure that out in a second. Give me a sec. 51 today. We have about 20 minutes until it kicks off. I need to go and find someone to help pin my numbers on, because I am useless like that. I'm sure someone will help me. And then we're go time. So 20 minutes, 12:15 start. It's very windy today. I think it's probably how we describe it. Quite like this car park. It's quite nice because you can just, yeah, it's pretty self-contained. Right, I need to go and warm up. So I'm going to get a quick warm up. It's almost 5 past 12. Race starts at 12:15. I've been told, you know, loop the paddock as a bit of a warm up. Let me give you a quick update on what we're going to do in terms of the race. So it's a Cat 4. I haven't done a Cat 4 only in a while. I've done one of them, but I think that was maybe at Lee Valley at the start of the year. It's quite windy today. I don't think, or I've been chatting to people, for a break to get away in the wind on an open course like this is going to be really hard. My goal is to do as little as possible. I'm actually going to try and race this one as more of a race, you know, try and sit in, do as little as possible, and just hold out for the sprint because we need some points. So that's basically my tactic. I have to actually, you know, I say tactic, this is probably the first time I'm going to try and do a race with tactics, where I try and do as little as possible. So yeah, wish me luck on that, and we'll see obviously how it plays out. Just want to like hide a little bit in the wind, sit in the group, and then hopefully hold out for the sprint finish and be in that, I think. But it's so windy that, from what I've been told, it's hard for groups to get away. And a few other guys are now joined in the paddock. It's not the best warm-up in the world. I've got to get some rolling. I quite like this little parade paddock though. That's quite fun. So we're about 20 miles outside of Bristol, near a town called Twinkie Dink, I think. That's so English. But you get quite a few of the guys that race at Odd Down, because that's Bathway, come here as well. So there are a few faces that I recognise from some other races I've done at Odd Down. Right, it's time to hit the start line and get going. So wish me luck.
Right, it's my favourite bit. I get to talk you through the entire race. The first thing to consider is this is the biggest field I've ever been in. There's tons of riders. I think we're going to say 60. Close to 60, around 60, maybe 50, but there's a ton of riders. First thing to consider. Also, I've never ridden here at Castle Combe before, entirely new to me, and I'm not sure whether I mentioned it. Obviously I did. It's a really, really windy day. We're running the bottle cam. I love the bottle cam, because the bottle cam lets you kind of see that you're actually closer to people. I think sometimes when you run the front Insta X4, it doesn't look like you're that close to people, but a lot of the time we are way closer than you actually think. Obviously not in this particular moment, but bear with me. Okay, never done Castle Combe before, ton of wind. The section that we're going through now, so top right we've got the little map. The wind is going south to north on the map, basically, so we're riding into a headwind now. Also, we've got a timer. It's about 4 minutes a lap. So this is the longest single lap course that I've done, biggest field that I've done. It's Cat 4 only. So I've never ridden here before, so this first lap that I'm going to talk you through, and here's the first chicane. It took me a while to realise that there's 2 chicanes on this same lap, and they're different chicanes because they are basically exactly the same as each other. A little right-hander into a gentle left-hander, but when it starts raining, that does change the flow of the race. Also, there's a few people, I don't want to call anyone out. The What Life's not about calling people out. The What Life is, just sharing my experience. A couple of riders that I like to keep an eye on. Some riders I keep an eye on because I think they're quite strong, and then you get on their wheel, you're like, this is a good place to be. Some people you're like, that's a little bit tetchy, and I'll point out some of the tetchy, there are a couple of moments with this guy on the left here, number 40, that become a bit kind of, I like to be smooth with it. I like to hold my line, or hold my line as best as possible. A lot of head swivel. He does looks every time. No, I'm not throwing shade. This is just my opinion. I'm just another guy on the course. If you watch this, I do apologise. Again, just my opinion. Just some rogue guy making videos on the internet. Does always look, but kind of not quite as smooth as I like to kind of see with some riders. Anyway. That'll pop up a few times during the race because somehow we end up to be in the vicinity a lot of the time. This first lap that I'm rolling through, and we are just about to kind of come into the second of the chicanes. The first lap that we're rolling through, I just kind of wanted to get the measure of the course. Never done it before, didn't really know anything about it, kind of never experienced Castle Combe before, so just wanted to kind of know what it was like. So first lap, just sit in the bunch. And the thing I liked about this race was I put in a real effort to position better. And it being a 4th cat only, more within my wheelhouse in terms of watts and ability, I think that kind of comes through. And that's the whole thing about this race, is there's a plenty of opportunities or plenty of moments where you see me kind of actively try and position better, try and ride on certain things, make smarter decisions. That some guy tries to ride off the front, you'll see me absolutely hang him out to dry, which is probably my favourite moment of the race, and I do apologise to you if you were, I'll talk you through it when it happens, but yeah, I absolutely hang someone out to dry, which is fine because there's 60 riders on this course, and you can see, I also thought, and I mentioned this at the very end, was one thing I did think was like, it's a really wide, it's a racetrack, right, it's a car racetrack. I thought that compared to Lee Valley, it meant that people would have more room, and it would be less chaotic. But first and foremost, like I said, biggest field I've ever done, 50, 60 riders. I did find way more calls of hold your line because the course is wider, because there's more riders. And I hope that kind of makes sense. I think if you had a smaller field on this course, it would be a lot easier to ride it. But I think they have a max capacity for almost like 70 or 90. Which is a lot of riders, and because it's so windy, it definitely was not going to break up today. I think that's the thing. As we roll through some of the chicanes, I found the chicanes were quite interesting for a couple of reasons, because I think some people handle it, as you always find, handle it a little bit better than others. And then this is the moment when, after a few laps, or I think it's just even one lap of getting, kind of figuring out what's going on, I was like, right, time to move up. And that's exactly what I do. I take quite a good line on the chicane, don't have to work too hard, and I get to kind of move to the front of the group. And this is the positioning where I felt like, this is where you want to be. Other than the fact that there's a headwind on certain parts of the course, if you're aware of that, this is where you want to be. Top kind of 10, 12 riders, 10, 12 wheels, because simply it means that you now get to pick your line through the corners, through the chicanes. I say pick your line, still got to be careful of other riders inside and outside, but you're not quite so at the mercy of someone kind of jamming a brake on in front of you, which does happen, and you will see that in a second. But that was my moment where I was like, okay, I've done a lap, or maybe 2, I can't remember. I think it's like maybe one or 2 laps. I was like, okay, we're going to move up, and we're going to position ourselves better. And that was the moment. So that was my first time that I kind of actively decided, and to be clear, I didn't want to be on the front of this race at all, and that's my usual kind of technique or my usual tactic, if you will, is like don't get on the front. Like, that's not me. I don't have those watts just yet. I think they're going to come. I just got back from Mallorca. The legs are probably struggling a little bit. I was doing 6-7 hour days, so the base is great, but I just don't have that kick at the moment. So getting back into a bunch of little crit races has been eye-opening, but at the same time, I think it's going to be good for my training. Trying to try and get some of that short-term 40-minute kind of punch back. So we did this today, and then we did another one the following day, did Abingdon the next day. Right, here's the first moment. We're coming into one of the chicanes, and basically someone kind of gets that line a little bit wrong, and thing to be aware of is there's a little bit of gap between the tarmac and then the curb, and there's like an inch gap. He kind of gets his wheels in it, and then I think panics a little bit, keeps it upright, everyone's fine, I think everyone's fine, but the whole field just like pings it through. So that can happen if you're not kind of positioned well. I thought we were reasonably well positioned coming into that. I just think someone got it a little bit wrong. Their tyre ended up in between the tarmac and then the curb, and I think they were just like, ooh, and then they kind of jammed the brake on, kept it upright, we all kept it upright, but the field kind of like flows past. That was my first incident for the day. And then there's Ned on the right here in the orange top. He'll pop up and down a few times, so just a cheeky hello. I think he actually waves to the camera to say hi in a second. Yeah. I did enjoy just like chatting to a few guys. So this is a second point where I make what I think is a quite good tactical decision. I'm out in the wind here, guys. I'm being hung out to dry a little bit. I do not have good positioning. But then I see this guy fly past me, and days of old I probably would have tried to stay on his wheel, but he flew past me on the left, and then I basically knew that because he's come past me on the left, everyone's going to drift over to the right to try and hold his wheel and line up. And I was like, well, the group's just going to come over to me. I can just hold my line. Wheels will come over to the left-hand side of the course because that guy attacked down the left, and I can just sit in, which I thought was, this is me starting to think a little bit more tactically. I'm not saying I'm perfect with the tactics. I think someone, that was number 40, just like chopping into the line a bit, and then people shouting at him to hold his line a little bit, which, like I said, some people are smooth with it, some people, they're not necessarily doing anything wrong, but it can get a bit kind of tetchy. It's like we all have our own little riding style, and again, look, I'm not trying to kind of like hang anyone out to dry. This is just my count on the race. But I thought that was quite interesting. And then when that guy attacked, and then the group comes back to me, we're now up into a headwind. Find a good wheel, sit on it. This is the point in the race where we are maybe 15-20 minutes in, and it started getting a little bit hot. And I was doing everything I can. The Mallorca legs kind of were really taking a beating. And there's basically a point in this where I'm like, I'm not sure whether I'm going to kind of like hold certainly this position in the group, but hold the group full stop. It started becoming like really hard work. I also think that I haven't really had a day off in a while. So my heart rate actually never gets that high. I think I probably max out at 168, 169, and I've got at least 178, I think, it's like my HR max. I need to take a few days off, basically, long story short, and I've been bad at that, and I need to get better at it. Okay, so the race starts hotting up. We're holding reasonable watts. I think you kind of have to ignore, and I work in miles an hour, so that's 24 miles an hour, so whatever that is, like 40 odd K an hour. You need to kind of ignore the speed, like the kind of gross speed on this, because there is such a headwind coming down certain parts. You can be putting down quite good watts, and just like it's really not reflected into the speed that we are moving. So I was still trying to maintain quite a good position. I was trying to sit on wheels, trying to find good wheels to sit on, and when I'm trying to find good wheels to sit on, it's guys at the front that are usually like a little bit bigger than me, so I can kind of try and tuck in behind them a little bit. Like I love a good set of thighs, love seeing a good set of thighs in front of me, because then I can just try to like tuck in a little bit. And then the rain starts coming, so this was like a particularly agonizing part of the race, and I think the guys behind us were probably feeling the same, because if you're now sat in wheels, you're getting a lot of water spray. The line through the chicane, as we're about to hit a chicane, you kind of wanted to be a bit further up. I'm fairly sure everyone kept it upright during this race. I cannot 100% confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that everyone kept up. But there were definitely a few moments through the chicanes when you could hear some shouting and a little bit of rattling going on behind. But you want a good line through the chicane. You want to try and keep your power down so you can roll through. You get smooth chicane, your exit for the chicane does help you kind of move through the group. But that was all I was trying to do. The speed on the front ends up kind of picking up a little bit. We got a bit of a tailwind, I think, like cross tailwind. I'm never really 100% sure in this race. It always felt like we were getting battered from one side or the other. Never really felt like it was kind of truly behind us, but that's certainly at this stage, perhaps. So trying to hold good wheels, trying to like this is, you know, and there's Ned again. I think we end up having, every time we pass one another, have a little catch up about how we are doing. But I'm starting to struggle as, you know, the watts are reasonably like continuously on, and I think this was the point of the race where people tried to do things, people tried to kind of make their moves, and then after this it calms down completely. Not completely, it calms down a lot, because I think they realise that getting away is actually really quite hard. Big field, lots of wind. You know, you come round the start-finish straight, and then you basically end up with what is like a really tough headwind. So if you're in a small group in a tough headwind, you know, the bigger group, well lined up, someone, you know, doing a bit of work, always ended up catching them up. So I don't know whether anyone actually ended up getting away, but there were a few efforts to get away, and it looks like the group is kind of like moving away from us. But, you know, hold some good wheels, kind of don't panic too much, and then we ended up bringing them back, because, you know, as is always the case, these little kicks in the race are because I think people are obviously just trying to get away from the group. And you'll see basically me do my kind of you know, hang someone out to dry completely in a second when they are trying to get away from the group. But I kind of got them. My measure of this race was like, it's going to be really hard to get away as a solo rider. You have to be like a really strong rider. You have to work as a, you know, 2-3 up maybe to get away. I didn't really see it happening, because every time you look behind you, you know, it's strung out with a field of 50 to 60 riders. But if you're holding good wheels, you kind of staying on the group wasn't too hard. I dropped back a little bit. A few guys shout at me to, you know, kind of come on, hold the wheel, keep in it, which I always appreciate. Like I do find it quite funny that people are very good at just like encouraging me to try and stay on the group. Right, this is an interesting bit, because I end up in a position where I don't kind of really want to be, but then I also, what I think I do the right thing, which is, you know, don't panic. And one of the things that loads of people will tell you is like, don't work for other people. That's like it's one of those like colloquialisms about crit racing and bike racing. It's like, don't work for other people. It's like, what does that actually mean? And you're about to see exactly what I think that means, which is, we're not too far from the end. I think we're 3 laps from the finish at this point. And there is a rider that I end up picking up on my right hand side as we come through the chicane, and I'll talk you through the whole thing. This is my number 40. I don't know how we ended up so close to each other the entire race, but it felt like we were kind of like wheel on wheel for much of it. But so we come through this chicane, and I started to quite enjoy it. And one thing that I've changed, or I've noticed change hugely through my progression as, you know, starting to bike race and doing more crit racing, going out to Mallorca, is my bike handling has improved so much. And I'm not just saying that, I genuinely, you know, and also bear in mind, my baseline when I started, it was horrible. You know, I'm very new to it. I haven't done this since I was a kid, but I get a good line through the chicane, a little bit of a kick coming out. This guy goes for it. I see him, I'm like, this is going to be a good wheel to follow if he moves up. But then he does this thing where he kind of thinks, I think he tries to like half attack the group, out the saddle. He's fully attacking the group. I'm like, well, look, I'm on his wheel anyway. I've got the momentum. I just stay on his wheel. So I'm like, okay, this is good. But then you see me just back off. I'm like, this is the whole point. When someone says don't work for other people, this is what they mean. Because some guy kicking through, and I'm looking behind me, he's looking behind him. Some guy kicking through, you might think, oh, right, excitement. Here we go, let's roll turns. I was like, when I look behind me, there's 59 riders back there. I was like, well, there's no point. Like, what are we doing? I'm now on your move. This isn't my move. I'm just holding your wheel. So he's looking back at me, desperately being like, come on, mate, do something. And I'm like, shaking my head, little elbow flick from in there. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm not here for that smoke. That's not my smoke. That's your smoke. You've put it in. The watts come right off. He's basically put in a kick, tried to kind of chase the group off, looking for me for support. I'm like, I don't need this smoke. This isn't my game. It's not my move. Don't work for other people, as they say. And I was like, I didn't think we were going to get away. I didn't feel like I had the legs to get away. It would have taken a bit. And this is the thing is, fourth cat racing, you don't often get teams. You'd have to really kind of roll turns with someone. And, it's raining. I'm like, we take different lines through that little chicane. And at this point, I basically tell him, I'm like, look, sorry, mate, I'm not really willing to work for that. But well done. That was a good 45-second effort. I hope, and that was it. And I thought that was quite interesting. Because days of old, I probably might have I probably might have got a bit excited by that. I just decided that I did not need to get excited about it. This is my one incident from the race, guys. I have one little incident, a little touch of bars, a little touch of riders. So number 5 in the pink jersey on my right is rolling through. I'm kind of sat between two riders. I let him come through and I'm like, okay, right, I'm just going to sit on his wheel. So his wheel becomes my wheel. Number 40, here we go, on my left. So, and I also, please bear in mind that the X4 probably makes it look like we're further away than we actually are. I'm sat on his wheel, coming through. He then tries to come, 40 tries to come across. We have a little touch of bars. He shouts at me, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, oh, well, I feel like you've kind of tried to steal the wheel that I'm actually sat on. And that's it. So that was it. That was the situation kind of happened. Nothing necessarily wrong with it, but it did feel like someone was coming across onto a wheel that I felt like I was on, and I was happy to hold a line. And I'm not an aggressive bike rider by any stretch of the imagination, but if I got forced off of that wheel, I might have had to move over, and then the knock-on effect on some of the other riders. I was like, no, I'm gonna hold my line. This is interesting. Bell lap, last lap. We're about to come into the bell lap. Top right-hand corner, the little green thing is the start-finish. I decide, knowing that we're coming into the bell lap, we're coming into the last lap, so we're just about to finish up the penultimate lap. I make this decision to move through the group. And this is what I'm quite kind of like, okay, quite proud of that. Like, so basically, if you think where we are now, and it's a 4-minute loop, we've probably got 4.5 minutes to the finish, to the checkered flag. And I say this afterwards, is the finish line is not the finish line. If you're not in it when the bell goes, if you're not near the front when the bell goes, it's really hard to kind of move through. So I made that decision to come through. I'm not saying my positioning's perfect. I'm just saying that I made more of a conscious decision to get myself up into contention. And it kind of goes a bit wrong for me in several ways, not least because I don't have the watts down the finishing straight, but at least I consciously knew and accepted that, okay, this is the bell lap. We're going down the start finish, get myself into a bit of trouble because it's a big open track, and you can see we are now bell lap, and we're what, like 6 up, 6 across the, like 6 up front, maybe 5, 6 up. When it comes into the sprint, I'm pretty sure it's like 8 up. So it's not like it got stretched out coming into this last lap, and unfortunately, guys, you have to listen to me kind of talk you through the entire last lap. But we're 5, 6 up going into a headwind here, so everyone's kind of moved into position. The mistake that I make, or I don't want to call it a mistake because I probably didn't have the watts. I can't make, there's some moves you can't make because you don't have the ability to back it up. So there's obviously a big wide open gap in front of me. If you're a strong rider, I could probably get my wheel in front of the 2 guys next to me. But for what purpose? Because then I'm now like really in the wind. I wouldn't have a wheel to sit on once we come through the chicane. But perhaps, retrospectively looking, perhaps that is something that I should have done, because then I would have been top 5, 6 wheels. So come through the chicane, hold this quite well, keep the power down through the chicane, like pedaling the whole way. Good move. Stretches out a little, or narrows down a little bit. We're no longer kind of 6, 7 up, but it kind of does move back through, because the guys on the front are obviously probably thinking the same thing everyone is, which is you want to be near the front, but you don't want to be on the front. So when they slow up, the whole group comes, well, not the whole group, but a big part of the group comes through. And this is the slow up. Look at the watts. So the slow up, because the guys in the front perhaps aren't thinking, they're like, we've still got half a lap to go. We don't want to be the point of the spear at this point. So they come off the watts a little bit. Group comes through. Now this is basically, we're half a lap. Look, top right hand corner, you can basically see our little dot is halfway around the course. This is when it should have been a bit more of a panic station for me. I should have realised that in actual fact, you need to keep fighting for position through here. You need to keep moving the watts. But I kind of end up, sat in this little group, getting a little bit kind of boxed in. I don't want to use phrases like boxed in because it makes me sound like I'm a proper bike racer, when in actual fact most of the time I don't feel that way. I just feel like some guy that likes riding his bike and likes racing. But I certainly get myself in a few positions. Now the problem is that we are 6 or 7 riders up. I'm now way too far back. I got riders either side of me, so there is like effectively no hole shot for me to get through unless I have mega watts. Coming into the last chicane, probably should have made more of an effort coming into that and coming through it. As the guys kick out, I again probably should have kind of taken the bit between my teeth and just gone a bit harder through this. Riders on my right, I've now moved into a position where there's a rider on my left, so I, to hold a line into the sprint finish, which is coming up in almost like one turn, basically one corner, then a little couple of gentle right and lefts, or left and rights, then it goes into the sprint. But you never really know when people are necessarily going to go. But we are 6 riders up. I'm probably should be doing more at this point. We come down onto the drops, so we know it's about to at least have an attempt. Still a bit far back. I don't know how I would necessarily get myself out of this situation. Rider on my right, rider on my left. Maybe at this point here I would have had half a chance of coming through, but then another rider comes on my right and shuts that down. So due to the way that this last lap has worked out, I'm trying to come through, maybe don't want to do anything too crazy. Rider again on my right shuts that move down. Come a little bit to the left as the guy in front of me drifts to the right to go round his side, and then I come into 2 more riders. I'm not saying I've got, I don't have much more watts than what you are seeing, but I'm trying not to be like aggressive, like moving left and right. The world opens up here, but then I think I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, yes, that didn't quite work out for me. Didn't also have the legs for it, but what a race that was.
My legs hurt now. Oh. That was a good one. I think everything was so much better on that. And I think the one thing that was better was, hopefully I talked you through it, was getting my positioning coming into the last lap. So I'm starting to realise the finish line isn't the finish line. The finish line is where you are halfway around the bell lap. Because if you're not in it, then you're not in it. So I used to think, this is race number 7. I used to think the finish line is where the checkered flag is. It's not. If you're not in position for the bell lap, you might as well forget about the finish line. I hope that makes sense. But I'm slowly learning that. Race number 7. And yeah, happy with it. Super cold and windy out there, so I'm going to wrap this one up in here where it's a bit warmer. I mean, it's the middle of April, so yeah, that was a cold and windy one. Apparently there was a few kind of little tetchy moments towards the back of the group. The thing that I liked about today was I put the effort in to kind of position myself a bit further up. I think that kind of paid off in the sense that I felt more kind of secure. You pick your own line. I had to drop back at one point when the race got quite hard, and then I had to sit at the back to try and recover. Other than that, it was, it's pretty good. The thing that I really liked about it was the fact that I basically actively made a decision to move up on the bell lap, try and just get in, try and at least be in with contention. Sprint didn't quite go to plan, but that's because I'm just probably not very good at sprinting. But my positioning up until then, I was pretty happy with. So yeah, it was a good race. I thought that being on a big open wide track would mean that people have more room and it wouldn't be quite so tetchy. I think it was almost a little bit of the opposite. I think some people thought there was more room than there was because, you look ahead of you and there's a 40-foot wide track. So people kind of flow a bit more. and it meant that, you know, basically in that race there were more people saying hold your line than I've heard in a lot of other races. And I think that's obviously due to people thinking that they can kind of position where they want, when in actual fact you still have to position like you are obviously in a pack and be aware of where other people's wheels are and things like that. So it wasn't necessarily too bad, but I did find that there was a lot of people being like, hold your line. But it also took me a while to realise that there were 2 chicanes, not just one. I wasn't just doing a short lap, it was a long lap, but with 2 chicanes. I thought they were the same one the whole time, till like 3 laps before the end. But yes, all went very well, happy with it. Yeah, all in all, a good race. Guys, yeah, I'm going to wrap that one up. I might try and get down to Abingdon tomorrow if the weather is all right. If the weather's bad, then I probably won't. Guys, thanks for joining in. Please do like and subscribe, and I will see you on another one soon.